Okay, so this is an educational film from 1947 called Don't Be a Sucker. It's about preventing fascism in the United States. Let's take a look and see if it's relevant to anything that might be going on in 2020.
Henry here got on the train with $200. He couldn't see any harm in a friendly game of cards. What if the other men were strangers? And take Joe Collins. He's got a nice wife at home. But he met this girl at the bar, and she looked after the first couple of drinks.
I guess I don't understand the need to seduce him, to mug him. I feel like you could just mug random passersby. Although I guess it would be better at finding a mark with money. Tucker White 94, calling it now. This is a screed against a straw man. Mean communism. I don't know.
There's a good old-fashioned word for people like this. We call them suckers. And there are other people. People who stay up nights figuring out how to take away what they've got. There are all kinds of games. Mike here, for instance. He's got everything in me. He's young, he's healthy, got a job.
He's white!
And he's got plenty of food. Big factories to make things a man can use. Big cities to do the business of a big company. And people. Lots of people. Enough to work the farm and build the factories, dig the mines, run the business. All kinds of people. People from different countries with different religions, different colored skins. Free people. They can live together and work together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they please. Go to their own churches, to pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America. But there are guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil.
Tucker White 94, wait a minute, I just saw a black kid mingling with white kids in 1947. Yeah, this is definitely, the North. The very far North. Wherever that's supposed to take place.
I see people with foreign accent money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it
Filmed in Canada.
in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here
You were watching an ad on Facebook that used this video? No. It's relevant.
in this little pamphlet.
There's a good Twilight Zone episode, too. I think it's called He's Alive, or He's Back, something like that. And it's very good. Similar messaging about fascism, like being in the United States and how it could rise very easily.
The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church.
Do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me.
And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason. Hey, that fella's talking about me.
People are so stupid. I hate people so much. The fact that it takes some people to hear someone literally talking about them specifically in this way to be like, wait a minute, I was fine when you were talking about, you know, getting people of different races and religions out of the country. But now that you said me, now I care. The deficit of empathy in this country is a serious problem. I'm not going to get moralistic and say, like, oh, it's sickening, although it is. It's a legitimate, like, social problem that affects every avenue of our lives. Political, economic, it's ridiculous. People who do not care about other people, unless it affects them, are not only in charge, but they proliferate every single interaction you have in this country. And it is so messed up. How much do you want to bet the guy or gal who made this film was blacklisted as a communist? I have no idea.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us. Made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it. And it isn't going to be you.
You know, yesterday on Public Domania, we were watching a ton of, like, educational films from the 50s that were ridiculous and unnecessary and shilled for the American dairy industry above all else. Why weren't they showing this in every classroom? This is relevant, okay? The boomers could use this. They could have used this. Today they could use this. My God.
This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen. I saw it first in Berlin in 1932. 5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew.
They were for a
owned
time. They
small
should show them
hardware
again
store.
today. Agree.
Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all Aryan Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profits for the small businessman. Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money and takes all our jobs? The Jew! He must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated. And the Catholics. We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these people when the time comes. They and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There will be only one society, and that is the Nazi Party. There will be no secrecy about that. In the new...
Tucker White 94, but Hannah, if we showed this to people during the 50s, then people might get the idea that the, let's say African Americans, I know what your point is, but I'm not going to say that, are people just like you and me, and make love to your daughters, collapses onto fainting couch. Yeah.
Greater Germany. One by one, he attacked each minority and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other.
Hitler was a Catholic, though, or are you wrong? He was Christian. I guess I'm not sure if he was Catholic. Let me take a look. Was Hitler Catholic? Religious views of Adolf Hitler have been a matter of debate. His opinions regarding religious matters changed considerably over time. During the beginning of his political life, Hitler publicly expressed his highly favorable opinions towards Christianity, but progressively distanced himself from it. Some historians describe his later posture as being potentially anti-Christian. He also criticized atheism. I think he's certainly, let me see. Hitler was born to a practicing Catholic mother and was baptized to the Roman Catholic Church. So I assume he was politically Catholic for quite a period of time. And he may have believed, it wouldn't surprise me if Hitler believed in, like, you know, Christianity to some extent, but I think he probably used it as a political tool for quite a period of time. Like, you know, Nazis and stuff, they weren't atheists, you know? At least not outwardly, like in God We Trust type stuff, not explicitly those wordings, but stuff like that would be on, like, Nazi stuff, so I don't know. But I think Hitler definitely saw, like, the Catholic Church and other religious organizations as a threat to Nazi hegemonic control of the ideology of the German people. So, organized religion, unless it was literally in the pocket of the fascists and they were parroting the party line, yeah, I think he was against it. Tucker White 94 is icing on the cake. Hitler was also Jewish by blood and was well aware of this. I mean, people can be hypocrites. Fascists are often hypocrites. Like, it's not about the fact that, like, Hitler probably did dislike, you know, people he considered to be degenerate, you know, people who are like Romani or Jewish. There's nothing funny about the homosexuals, you know, all that, you know, anyone who was targeted by the Nazis. But at the end of the day, I think Hitler more so cared about using those scapegoats as political tools to gain power and maintain said power. Like, let's say if Nazi Germany, if World War II didn't happen, let's say instead of trying to expand, after Germany takes Poland, they stop, at least for a while, and they completely wipe out anyone in their country that they don't consider, you know, right. Like, Hitler wipes out the people that were targeted during the Holocaust. And make no mistake, by the way, had German not been expansionist and started trying to take over Europe, no one would have done anything. It's disgusting, but it's true. Look at what's happening, like, in China. You know what I mean? Like, people get put in concentration camps and killed by the government often, and nothing gets done about it. Humanity is not great at helping each other out. Either way, let's say they had done so, and they had wiped out, you know, all the people they considered degenerate. They would have had to moved on to another group. You know what I mean? Like, let's say that everyone who is around is a German that isn't, like, Jewish or whatever their criteria was. They would have had to change the bar. Like, oh, now brunette people. We're going to get rid of all the brunette people. Like, they got to have a target. Fascism always needs a target for society to hone in on. That's how it thrives, is on fear of the other and the demonization of said other. Daddy Sume with 10 bits of theory, I believe, is that he used it as a political tool, and it's thought that once they had secured their rule, they would phase it out. Man in the High Castle does a good representation. Yeah, sounds about right. The Nazis had a complicated relationship with the church. Some factions supported them, the others didn't, and they supported those who shilled for them while destroying the others. They even had a pope who supported them. I did hear about that, yeah. And then Andrew Dickerson with 10 bits, but Catholics' base is in Italy, who were Hitler's allies. Yeah, well, the Vatican's its own thing. It's kind of its own... In fairness, I guess I don't know what the Vatican's relationship to Italy was during, you know, Italian fascism, so I guess I don't know.
They were being swindled, all of them. But the man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards. To him they promised everything, and he fell for it. That's how Hans became a Superman. They gave him a uniform and they pumped up his ego. He wasn't just a little fellow out of work anymore. He was a member of the master race. Hans and thousands of others like him, all playing a sucker's game. They gambled with other people's liberty, and of course they lost their own. A nation of suckers. Hitler needed these people. There was lots of work to be done. There were trade unions to be smashed, because unions were organized and might offer resistance.
Union smashing is a fascist activity. You don't say.
Many political parties in Germany. These the Nazis destroyed.
Oh, the delegitimization and the demonization of other political parties? Also fascist? Weird.
They were determined to smash every organization where people might band together and resist them. There were Jews to be beaten and killed. The Jews were not powerful, but they were a convenient excuse for all the nation's ills. And besides, a Nazi party member could not take over this man's store. Hundreds of Catholics were put in jail because the Catholic Church had strength and could resist the Nazi drive for power. They had split the nation into 100 pieces, and then one by one, they had destroyed the pieces. Over these broken pieces, the Nazis rode into power. One party, one nation, one religion. These men had won their struggle for power. They now ruled all of Germany. But still they had trouble with their oldest and most persistent enemy, the truth. They found that truth does not die easily, and so they decided to abolish truth. One great source of truth is literature, so they burned books, 20 million of them. Many great men in Germany who were spokesmen for truth were jailed or driven from their country. Teachers, writers, scientists. Education was discouraged.
Wait a minute. Fascists don't like university-educated individuals? Anti-intellectualism as a tenet of fascism? Who would have thought? What governmental...
I cut it so it might be easier to eat with your lipstick.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
About the tools of capitalism.
What political entities in the United States are anti-intellectualist? I'm gonna have to think about that one for a while. Tucker White 94. Let's be fair, however, Germany was also in the midst of an economic depression. Take that out of the equation, I doubt Hitler rises to power like he did. Probably true, but that's true of a lot of, like, fascism, right? Like, it comes in times where people are struggling and it provides an easy answer to them. Oh, it's not, you know, the fault of, you know, World War I and the Warsaw Pact that we're in an economic depression. It's, you know, XYZ. It's Jewish people. It's the Romani. It's, you know, you can point to all sorts of demonization people and then you just say, oh, we just have to get rid of these people. That's how fascism thrives.
5 years, college attendance dropped 53%. It was forbidden to listen to a British radio program or read an American newspaper.
There's nothing funny about it.
In Nazi Germany, you had to get your information from Dr. Goebbels. He knew what was best for you.
If eating this smears my lipstick, bear with me. I'll fix it later. I'm not sure if it will or not. Daddy Sume sounds familiar. It's not our fault. It's because of the Mexicans. Yeah. The Republican Party does the same thing. Oh, your economic well-being wasn't destroyed by us and capitalists shipping your jobs away for cheap labor in foreign countries.
That's right.
It was all those illegal immigrants. It's not us. Very stupid.
The church was one force in Germany still strong enough
K. Gibson 90, thank you for following.
to proclaim the truth in public. This Catholic priest was arrested the following day on charges of immorality. The Protestant church also continued to try and fight for truth. The Nazis put this man in a concentration camp.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
There were others who spoke for truth, and I am proud to say that educators were among them.
MMO Addicted with 10 bits. Pius the Seventh, the Pope at the time, had a complicated relationship with the Nazis, and we can't know for sure where his true loyalties laid. We know he never condemned the genocide verbatim, but initially he sheltered and gave work to Jewish scholars run out by the Italian fascists. It could be argued he did not do enough, but also that he was careful to avoid the Vatican being easily purged and ransacked by the Italian military.
And what, may I ask, is an Aryan? I don't know myself. But let us see what our present so-called authorities have to say about him. They say he is tall, slender, blue-eyed, and blonde. There is no Aryan race. And more important, there is no master race. There are people who may find these ideas convenient, but science cannot support them. There is no scientific proof that there's any correlation between a man's racial characteristics and his native ability or character. In all...
This is a pretty based, like, little educational film for 47.
racial groups, we find
The Civil Rights Act is 22 years away, and this guy's based as fuck. Antipodian Squid with 100 bits. Meanwhile, in Australia, the government is forcing students from certain economic backgrounds out of higher education, but making the most accessible degrees twice as expensive and inaccessible. Stupid.
same range of potentialities. We find idiots and geniuses. We find criminals and philanthropists. We must judge each man as an individual and not by the color of his skin or his eyes or by the length of his nose.
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
Nick Shadow 96, thanks for following.
Come in, gentlemen. It's comfortable. And remember that there is no master race. That is a scientific truth. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying.
And so for all practical purposes, truth had been abolished in Germany. A lot of my German friends wondered what had hit them. How did it happen? Where did it start? It started right here. And this was where it could have been stopped. If those people had stood together, if they had protected each other, they could have resisted the Nazi threat. Together they would have been strong. But
MMO Addicted with 10 bits. Why do you think I sent this? Old folks can be based. My grandma says openly, I'm happy I live in a world where gay people can exist. They were always
There's
a
nothing
thing.
funny about
Close
the tools of
girlfriends who always had
capitalism.
walks together. Old bachelors who went on fishing trips. Just no one talked about it. Now we can finally be more open about it. Yeah. Tucker White 94. Well, at least the Gestapo was polite enough to let him finish before arresting him.
once they allowed
Dramatic effect. In movies, Nazis allow for dramatic effect.
themselves to be split apart,
Not so much in real
they were
life.
helpless. When that first minority lost out, everybody lost out. They made the mistake of gambling with other people's freedom. Now let's see how those bets paid off. Carl the farmer was gambling on a better life for himself. What he got was extra hours of back-breaking work, as much as 100 hours a week. He was forced to stay on his land and produce what he was told to produce, because now Hitler was preparing for war. For Heinrich, who owned a hardware store, the bet didn't pay off either. 104,000 small businesses were closed in 2 years. And for Hans, conditions hadn't improved any. He had a job now in a munitions factory, but he worked long hours for little pay. The working conditions grew increasingly bad. And even though he didn't like the job, he wasn't permitted to leave it. And when Hitler decided the time was right, Germany went to war. Not by declaring war, but by a carefully prepared sneak attack. Once again, Hitler needed Hans to do his dirty work. Hans was an expert at brutality this time, and Hitler had decided to use Hans and his brutality against other peoples, the Czechs, the Poles, the French, the Russians. But in the crucial test of war, Hitler's race theories didn't pay off. His pure-blooded supermen were defeated by the mongrel armies he despised, by the British of El Alamein.
It does make me feel good that in Hitler's final moments, I'd like to think he realized, even in his narcissistic psycho brain, I shouldn't say psycho, because that downplays the evil potential of, like, any individual person. I don't think Hitler was a psycho. I think Hitler was a profoundly evil person. He may have been a narcissist, but he knew what he was doing. And it doesn't fix any of the evil that was done because of Hitler, but it does make me feel good to think in his final moments maybe he realized, I failed. I failed. Who knows, though? Thank you, Wind Chanter, for saying my lipstick looks good. I appreciate it. Hopefully this doesn't mess it up.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Random invite, 10 bits. My understanding is that the psychology profiles for Nazi leaders were considered normal. No. Banality of evil and all that.
By the Russians at Stalingrad. Then on D-Day by American soldiers of every color and religion, who smashed across the Normandy beaches and drove on through to the heart of Germany. For the misguided...
By the way, anytime...
on through to the heart of Germany.
Anytime some dummy on the internet, when they're talking about, like, destroying Confederate statues or whatever, is like, what about our history? Just send them this.
For the misguided...
By the end of the war, Hitler was on a ton of meds and wasn't mentally there. I hope he was there enough to recognize what had happened.
Germans who had swallowed the Nazi bait, the Nazi game did not pay off.
There's nothing funny
The
about
continent of Europe was strewn with millions of German bodies.
Daddy sue me with 10 bits. Every color in D-Day, LOL, no. Yeah, no.
Pure Aryan bodies. Karl, the farmer, was left in the snow outside of Moscow. Heinrich stayed in Italy at Salerno. And Hans, who was going to rule the world, got only a little patch of Normandy that he could call his own.
Oof!
We must never let that happen to us or to our country. We must never let ourselves be divided by race or color or religion, because in this country we all belong to minority groups. I was born in Hungary. You are a Mason. These are minorities. And then you belong to other minority groups, too. You are a farmer. You have blue eyes. You go to the Methodist Church. Your right to belong to these minorities is a precious thing. You have a right to be what you are and say what you think, because here we have personal freedom. We have liberty. And these are not just fancy words. This is a practical and priceless way of living. But we must work at it.
Cayugo Gal, thank you for subscribing. Love you, Hannah. Keep being awesome. Thank you. Thanks for subscribing.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
And Wind Chanter, didn't the U.S. think they could weaken Hitler by dosing him with female hormones? I'm not familiar with that. Sounds like the kind of weird thing the military would have tried to do, though.
We must guard everyone's liberty, or we can lose our own. If we allow any minority to lose its freedom by...
About the tools
Weren't
of
there
capitalism.
segregated regiments on D-Day? I'm not familiar. It wouldn't surprise me, though. Tucker White 94 with 10 bits. I love how this video makes its point so well, even without invoking the Holocaust. Though to be fair, the full details of it didn't go public until decades later.
persecution or by prejudice, we are threatening our own freedom. And this is not simply an idea. This is good, hard common sense. You see, here in America is not a question whether we tolerate minorities. America is minorities. And that means you and me.
Woohoo Lulu, thank you for subscribing with Prime.
So let's not be suckers. We must not allow the freedom or dignity of any man to be threatened by any act or word. Let's be selfish about it. Let's forget about we and they. Let's think about us.
That's a really good little educational film. Relevant today as it was back then. Please vote, people. Please vote. Please vote. Please vote. Please vote. That is all.